Alright, everybody, no pre-stream shenanigans this week. Welcome to Game Wisdom Live for the week of February 10th, 2019. Unfortunately, Rob is out with some last-minute issues that came up, so you are stuck with just me for today. But it's not like I don't know how to talk for an extended period of time. Despite Rob not being here, I do have several topics I want to talk about. Hey, news, thanks for coming on. And want to give everybody a heads up about what's going on with the book and promos and all that other, I guess, administrative stuff. So the first thing is that my second book is coming along quite nicely. I am now just about 23,000 words in. The last book came in at just about 25 or 26.5 in terms of word length, and I think this one's going to be pushing beyond that. I did hear back from my alumni or my old college about coming out there. I need to get in touch with them. I'm actually going to show them a little snippet of the book. They're going to get an exclusive sneak peek, I guess. And I'm going to be hopefully setting up to do something with them maybe in the coming months. So fingers crossed on that. For anyone who's still watching or interested, you only have again until the end of February to get a $25 or more donation in if you'd like to be acknowledged in the second book. Again, the book is due, I think it's like the 5th or like the 10th. I should probably reread that contract, I guess. And once that's in, that's it. I can't add anything more to it. And I have another idea for a cute little giveaway starting in March as kind of keeping the 25 VIP premium promo going, and hopefully that will get some success. I also started kind of like a little mini donation goal for the live streams to get Resident Evil 2 Remastered. I think we're at like $10 of 65 right now. And I'm not going to do it during these live shows because we'll have plenty of time to advertise that during the live streaming and such. Speaking of, for people watching this live, we're going to be doing a developer live cast tomorrow. That is the 11th of February around 3:30 p.m. I'm going to be talking to Michael, whose last name escapes me right now, Michael Taylor. And we had him on a few months ago, who's an indie developer, and he's going to talk about kind of what he's discovered or found out about going around, I guess, the convention circuit in terms of promoting your game. Being, out in the front lines, talking to people and stuff like that. And that's something that we really don't hear too much about. So, definitely excited to talk to him about that. For tonight's stream, I'm going to be trying to do a double feature of puzzle platforming with Braid and the Swapper, as I need to get some footage of those kinds of games. Other than that, I do have a few games that I've been playing that I want to discuss. And I'm also pulling up the news of the week now. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Ex-Telltale devs are forming a new studio. That should be very interesting to see what they do now that Telltale is kind of on its way out, or pretty much dead at this point. Apex Legends, I think, is probably the big news of the week. Respawn Entertainment's Battle Royale, and my throat just closed up, 1 second. I ate some chips before I started, and now there's a chip like right in the back of my throat. That's always a good sign, right? But Respawn Entertainment, the developers behind the Titanfall series, which I have not played, I guess quietly, or quote-unquote quietly, revealed Apex Legends. And that is kind of the transformation from Titanfall 3 into Battle Royale. And the game has certainly been lighting things up. And definitely a very weird case when it comes to that kind of success. They've been trying to grow Battle Royale in their own way with these 3-man squads over, I think it's like 90 players in a single match. And it's definitely not for me. I got perhaps the most clickbaity thing I have ever made for a thumbnail art that I'm going to be unveiling this week for a video topic on that. We'll see again if it's really true, if just mentioning Battle Royale brings like an extra 300 to 500 views on a video. Oh, I can't wait for that. But with that with Battle Royale, it does still raise that question in terms of just how much Battle Royale people really want to play. Because there's still plenty more of those games coming out in the meantime and in the coming months. Let's see what we got here. In terms of games played, we did some more classic games. I, at long last, can add beating Contra without using the Konami code to my, I guess, list of accolades there. We did play Apex Legends. Trying to think about, oh, we did try out Sunless Skies. And there's going to be a video review of that going up this week. And that is a tough game to review. And I think I want to make that my second topic for today's chat. Talking more about trying to combine an effective gameplay loop with a strong narrative. Because it's one of those things that we see this with developers like Fail Better, Telltale, or formerly Telltale, the Chinese Room, and so on, when it comes to wanting to tell a very unique or very engaging story, but you still need to have gameplay attached to it. Let's see, anything else going on? Battlefield 5 or EA reviewed revealed that the game did not do a good job coming out of the gates. Poor marketing, delays, and Battle Royale hurt Battlefield 5, and of course every YouTuber and all the usual suspects have been making videos about that one little bit of news. Speaking of, I've been talking to Ramin, and we were kind of having a chat about Respawn and Battle Royale. And the crazy thing is that because of his connections and his insight, he tells me things that I can't repeat. So I'm kind of stuck with all these little insider knowledge that I'm gloating over you guys about knowing. 1 second, my phone is ringing. Let me just see if I can hear. I'll just let it ring. The beauty about having a phone that tells you who's calling is you can now know when to pick up or when to let it ring. Hey, El Gordo. And let me close that door, though, because I'm not sure how many more times it's going to ring. But with Respawn and Apex Legends, and getting back to this Battle Royale, that we are still seeing more developers trying to push that design. I know when we were playing it, I asked you guys what you thought about it, and I don't know, it still doesn't seem like it's going to be, esports popular. And 1 second here. There we go. Or esports recognizable. I know obviously with big name streamers like Dr. Disrespect, Ninja, and the like, that there's definitely people wanting to watch somebody play these kinds of games, but I don't know if there's enough to make, let's say, interrupt ESPN to show off a Fortnite match. Because we did see the E-League, like we've talked about many times before, show up on TBS, and they were showing CSGO matches, Street Fighter, and the like. But for people watching, I mean, do you find it interesting to watch a full Battle Royale match? I don't know, even playing it was starting to be a little bit boring. But again, I am certainly not a high-level player, and I can't attest to that all that much. Let me see here. The new Etrian Odyssey game came out this week, and I'm really tempted to kind of get a belated birthday present, or buy it from me to pick that one up. It's going to be the last game of the franchise on the Nintendo 3DS, and then it's going to remain if we're going to see it show up again on the Switch, or if Nintendo decides to put out another handheld. And I don't know, I would love to see another handheld line, not just making Switch games. Because one of the beauties or the attractions of the DS, the 3DS, has been the fact that it is obviously easier in terms of development costs, so you can really experiment more with games with it. And of course, having the two screens afford developers a little bit more freedom in making very weird or different titles, like Kirby Canvas Curse, the Etrian Odyssey series, The World Ends With You, and probably a few big ones, Kid Icarus Uprising. That is a really good one. I gotta ask the chat, have you played Kid Icarus Uprising for the 3DS? And while I'm waiting for an answer there, I just want to look something up quickly about Nintendo Switch. Looking up, drinking, while reading chat all at the same time. So there's a rumor coming about that there's going to be a new model of Nintendo Switch that's going to be handheld only. And that is going to be very interesting. What that means, obviously, is that it will not have that dock that you can attach to the TV. And while this is definitely, I think, a smart move for Nintendo, because one of the big attractions of the Switch has literally been the fact that it is a handheld console. And we haven't really seen anything along that line. But there are some games that I think that's going to hurt it for. Like anything that's going to be very skill or technically intensive, like Hollow Knight, even Mario Odyssey in some cases. Like, you really want to have a controller on hand to, you know, work with like that. And I don't know if if every game's going to be able to work along those lines. But I still would like to see Nintendo make an actual new handheld. Or if you just give us like a Nintendo 3DS 2 or 3DSu, if we go with the Wii U branding. Just so that we can have more of those experimental games and have a platform that they can be built on without being, you know, a high-risk experience. Because again, something like Etrian Odyssey, I'm pretty sure the only reason Atlas greenlit that game was the very fact that it was going to be on the handheld only. Like, a hardcore dungeon-crawling wizardry spiritual sequel doesn't sound like the high-octane game you want to be putting on a platform to compete with Call of Duty, Legend of Zelda, and Overwatch, stuff like that. But speaking of that, I would love to see them bring Etrian Odyssey to the PC. Nice America, what's the name of that game? Released a dungeon crawler for PC. I think it was winter of last year. What was that? I'm actually really tempted to pick that one up. Where are you? Here it is. Labyrinth of Refrain. Coven of Dusk. Again, another game with a very weird name to it. I don't know about that news. Again, when Nintendo does these redesigns, it's always weird in terms of what they keep and what they get rid of. Let's see. Yep, here it is. So this was a dungeon crawler that was released on PC and consoles. Very anime influenced, if you know what I mean. And yeah, it came out, and that was released at full price of $50. And right now it's on sale for $39. I know that Steam Lunar sale going on. I can technically take that down to $34. Hey, Mike. And again, like, I just wonder how well that game did overall. And Nice is another really good example. Their games have been very niche over the last decade. Excuse me. But for the people who enjoy them, you're not really going to find a better example of that genre. And I'm trying to scan. Yeah, they brought over just about every one of their games to the PC over 2016 to now. We played Killer 7, which I know if Mojo's watching, he really loved watching that game. What the heck is the Caligula effect? What the... Again, there's only, I think, so much anime tolerance we each have. I have no idea what this game is about. I see high schoolers with crazy weapons, which I think just describes about 95% of all anime and JRPGs ever made. But like with someone like Nice, like I'm surprised they didn't do more with the 3DS and DS. They did port over several Dissecting games to it. They even did a few on the PSP. But I do think it's important to have like a handheld, or a handheld line or market for people. Sonic Mania. I mean, I played it on the PS4. That's how I got the footage for my video review. Let's see, what's it priced at now? It's down to $7. Well, or almost like $9 if you count the Encore DLC there. And well, of course, it has Denuvo with it. I liked it. It's pretty much like Sonic. It's pretty much like if someone just made another 2D Sonic game. So if you like that, you know, it's pretty much more of it. But if you're expecting like brand new elements or design, it doesn't really go that far. And that could certainly be another modern retro game, though. Let's see. And it definitely has some mixed reviews from people, but I think overall everyone enjoyed it just because they got another Sonic game. Yeah, I mean, again, like, they definitely had a goal in mind, and that was basically make Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Which technically there was a Sonic the Hedgehog 4, and they only got like one episode in, and then everyone stopped playing it. Yeah. It's almost like an expansion pack, really, to Sonic 3. Let's see. Trying to think if there's any other news to get to before I want to talk about one big topic, and then we'll see how the chat goes. You know, my eyes are darting around as I'm trying to read everything here. American Sign Language emotes added to Star Citizen. Oh, that's nice. I just wonder how much money was spent on that feature. Let's see. 3DS sales have slowed, but Nintendo still sees a market. Yes, Nintendo, make another 3DS, please. Let's see. Nothing else is screaming out to me here. Overwatch architecture. Zynga generated $228 million in revenue. I'm sure we're all excited about that one, right? No, Zach from Zachtronics had a Kickstarter out for a book, a 400-page behind-the-scenes design book on all the Zachtronics games. I just want to look that up really fast to see how that one's doing. Let's see. How's he doing? Here it is. Oh my god. Well, he definitely hit his goal. He asked for $5,000. He's just at almost $38,000 in 5 days. So, definitely congrats to Zach if he may somehow be watching this. So, it's annotated design documents for all the Zachtronics games, individual puzzle design sheets, never before seen sketches, weird design exercises, like fake Pokemon cards Zach made when he was in 6th grade study hall. That is crazy. 400 pages of design and information. Not bad. Doesn't look like there's any like bonus goals though. Like, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to like do like a lot of extra stuff like that. But it definitely looks like a lot of information if you are a fan of Zachtronics. Let's see. How is Abby Games doing? They are at 33,000 of their 56,000 goal. So they are going for it. I'm still not sure, like, how it will really impact the game. I think I want to try sending them a message see if I can get them on for a podcast. That way we get some more promotions and I can rant about the game with them for an hour or so. But I think with that, I want to get to my first design topic and then we'll play it by ear in terms of how long to make the stream. So, for those of you who aren't following the Discord channel, which again it is linked down below and all that other great stuff, I had the arduous journey of trying to get a Kaizo game to work on my computer, and it lasted about 10 minutes. Just enough time to look at the FAQ, download what I needed, and again, because a Kaizo game is essentially a patch for a ROM, we can't talk about how you do it. But for the first time, I got to play a true Kaizo game following I Want to Be the Guy. And this was the Kaizo hack for Super Mario World called Invictus, which, for people who don't follow the Kaizo community or Kaizo streamers, this was a Kaizo hack released in 2018 that basically they have like their own terminologies for everything for Kaizo hacks. It's called a chocolate hack, which means that it adds new elements and designs that weren't featured in the original Super Mario World. We're talking about levels such as having vertical screen wraps, crazy puzzles. There's one section where you are swimming through water sections that are just literally going like up and down like a platform, and all crazy, of course, Kaizo traps. The idea of a Kaizo fish, which that's a fun thing to say if you've never played a Kaizo game and have no idea what I'm talking about. But the point about the Kaizo game, again, for people who haven't played them, is that they are notoriously difficult. And here's the funny thing. Invictus is graded as light in terms of difficulty on the website. And in the span of 30 minutes, I died about 100 times. Maybe for that too, El Gordo. And my hand is actually sore. I think I got a cramp in my wrist from trying to play that game at that level for that amount of time. And the thing about Kaizo design is that it's very much like the logical evolution when it comes to old school or retro gaming. And that is that it is 100% mechanical play. And that is different from what I'm going to, I guess, call like improvisational play. So, the kind of our topic is going to be discussing the differences between the two and what everybody thinks about it. So, when we talk about mechanical play, these are games where everything is set up essentially around fixed timers and triggers. If, for instance, the Medusa head in Castlevania, that infamous wave pattern that it does, that is fixed. Like, you're never going to see Medusa head, all of a sudden, start doing a circle or start homing in on you. Thank Konami on that one. Enemies are set up to spawn whenever you hit specific trigger points, which are usually tied to either player position or to where the screen is scrolling. And when we play old school games, this is why it becomes a lot harder to progress if you're not able to kill an enemy fast enough. Because the enemy pushes you back, you kill him, you walk forward, you hit the screen trigger that you just got, or the spawn trigger, the enemy comes back. And these kinds of games are played, again, very mechanically. They're very pattern driven. If you've watched, Contra play or any classic action-based title, the bosses are always set up to follow a set number of events. Sometimes that pattern may be slightly adjusted based on player position. If I'm this distance away from the boss, he'll do this attack. If I'm this close to the boss, he'll do that. If I'm over here, they'll do another pattern. And if you've watched many AGDQ runs of classic games, a lot of that high-level play comes down to breaking the AI by knowing that if I'm in a certain position, the boss will always do X. So if I can get around X, I can trick the boss into performing that same action again and again, and thereby just, nullify that battle. Because if I don't do that and the ball starts jumping all around and doing crazy attacks, you can read that as well. And that's kind of the major point about these mechanically driven games and about Kaizo. That you're not really playing a Kaizo game, I guess, quote unquote, for the moment. As in, you're reacting to what's going on in that game. If you play a Kaizo game on pure reaction, you will never beat that game. Because one of the major hallmarks of a Kaizo design is that instead of introducing like sections where you're given a break after you perform an obstacle or two, you're basically going to be on, I guess, for a good 2 to 3 minutes of pure, tricky, technical platforming. And I'll give you the example in Invictus. In the first level, the second that level begins, you are shot out of a pipe cannon that you need to hold down the jump button to maintain momentum or you'll fall. When you land on a platform that kind of acts as a seesaw that goes down, goes back up. You have to do a almost pixel precise jump off the platform to dodge chompers above, while a swinging platform down below is doing this. When you land on that platform, you then have to do a quick double jump to hit a Kaizo block before you get pushed in that block and then killed. When you exit that pipe, you have about a quarter of a second to jump off a floating question box to land on a pipe. You then have half a second to jump off of that pipe before it climbs up into a spike. And then that jump, you have to make an aborted jump onto a pixel-precise section of a pipe while a piranha plant is there. If you jump too far, you're going to get hit by that piranha plant. But wait, once you land on that pipe, you then have to quickly jump around the pipe to avoid a Kaizo fish that will hit you if you just land. Now, what I just described over like the last minute, that is let me see if I do a quick calculation in my head. That is about 5 seconds of that level. And that's just 4 sections. And I've only managed to get past that in about 120 tries twice. I don't know what else is in that level. I've only managed to get past it 2 times and then I immediately died. That's how technical it is. And even harder, like I said, there are Kaizo games that are rated harder than Invictus. Exactly, Mike. And those games will actually require you to exploit specific glitches, such as if you jump Mario at the right angle into a wall, he'll kind of slightly glitch or clip into that wall, allowing you to do like a pseudo wall jump up, and that is almost a frame perfect trick to do. And there are games that require that to make it through. Like, that's not a bonus challenge or an expert or an additional thing. That is the bare minimum to beat that game. And if you've watched the streamer and YouTuber Dode or Dodecahedron, he is doing a Kaizo-a-thon where he's playing, I think he's up to 8, he's picked right now 88 Kaizo games over the span of I think 2008, 2009 to today that he's trying to beat. And you can actually chart, like there's an evolution of Kaizo games from back then to where they're at now. And here's the thing for you folks watching this right now who have no idea what I'm talking about. Kaizo games have actually gotten quality of life features. You wouldn't believe that if I just said it, but yes, they have actually put in things to make them more accessible, I guess, over the years. And these games are just insane at that level of difficulty. But as Mike said in chat a few minutes ago, it's not really you playing a game. It's basically, can you perform 75 exact actions perfectly? Yes, you can beat this level. No, you will never beat this level. And it really is kind of the antithesis of modern game design, even just modern pacing and structure in these levels. Because they're set up in a way that it's not really about, I can't really describe it, like kind of having like a theme or a progression curve. It's just basically, here's a set of actions, do them. and that's it. And that whole thing about or having to react to actions before you even get to them, I don't think that's good game design. Because again, it's a very much like a trap kind of mentality that you have to know about beforehand or you won't be able to solve it. Because by the time it actually gets on screen or that you're able to react to it, it's already too late. But like, that is a difference in when we talk about more of game design today, where it's more improvisational. Roguelikes are probably the best example of this. You cannot do a set number of actions in a roguelike and expect to win. Again, news, I think you can probably agree with me with playing FTL. Or even for people who've played Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire, or any game that features random or procedurally generated content or situations. It doesn't work like that. You have to be constantly reacting to what's at hand and making adjustments and changes accordingly. It's the same thing with XCOM. Like, XCOM is a game that is very RNG dependent. Everybody knows that. Again, we've lost 90% and higher hit chances, or at least I have. But the people who generally do well in XCOM know how to mitigate RNG. They know how to plan, but at the same time, they have a plan B. Then they have a backup to that backup. Then they'll have a backup to the backup to the backup. And that's a way of, again, understanding that if this 80% chance hit doesn't work, well, I can do X. If X doesn't work, I can do Y. And the people who tend to fail at XCOM or don't do as good or as well, they will end up basically putting all their eggs in one basket. I'm going to set up my entire group around this specific strategy that has an 8% chance to succeed. And then guess what happens if it doesn't succeed? You're screwed, because everybody's out of position. And that is why these games, or at least for me, why I prefer them. That it's more about you reacting to what's going on rather than coming up with that plan. Another major part about Kaizo design is that it's become very popular. Me too. It's become very popular for task runs. If you don't know what that term is, task is tool-assisted speedrun. It's basically using a program or a secondary piece of device that plays the game at the beyond human capacity level. We're talking about doing frame-specific elements within milliseconds. They are able to basically break the game in ways that no human could literally ever do, unless we somehow get into that cyberpunk future where we're all heavily modded cyborgs. And people like to watch those task runs because when you're playing a Kaizo game or watching Kaizo footage, it's almost like you're performing like a dance, or like an orchestra is performing a bit of classical work. It's, again, you're listening to something that is done perfectly. And any deviation from that perfection is not going to work. And it has suddenly become popular. Again, there are many YouTubers and Twitch streamers who pretty much exclusively do Mario Maker levels or Kaizo games, whether they're designing them or playing them. But I think for me, like, it just isn't that interesting for me. And then the other point, I'm going to try and include this in a post on Game Wisdom this week, is that it's causing me some very big dissonance when I'm playing this game, because I swear that Mario's physics in this Kaizo game is different than his physics in Super Mario World. Like, something feels off to me. And it's one of those things that you're not going to find in regular games. Again, when you design a brand new game, you are creating your own rule set and systems accordingly. Playing Mario is different than playing Sonic, which is different than playing Earthworm Jim, or Felix the Cat, or whatever that other cat's name was in Rockin' Cats. So every game, it's kind of like every game is its own vehicle. You're not going to drive a motorcycle the same way that you'll drive a dune buggy, or a truck, or a plane, or a boat, or anything like that. And so you do have that initial learning curve of figuring out, okay, how does jumping work in this game? How does running work? When we play a Souls-like, can I... I'm sorry, I just lost my word here. Can I cancel out my attacks? Can I dodge cancel? Like, how can I basically work within the rules of this game and then play accordingly? This is why many people who play a Dark Souls game, the first hour or two, you are going to die a lot as you're trying to figure out what's the timing for parrying. Again, raise your hand if you have spent a lot of time in Bloodborne trying to get the repose down with your gun repose, I should say, in that game. But the point is that you're trying to learn the handling of this game, and then it's up to you to play accordingly. But playing Invictus, my brain was running into a situation where I'm telling Mario what to do, and he's not doing it. Like, I would press left. Like, I would press left on the control pad to force him to abort that jump, and it wasn't working. Like, he still just went right into Piranha Plant. And, like, for some reason, it just felt like there were some handling issues. Like, it's almost akin to saying, like, I'm going to take the engine and the hardware of a Ferrari, and I'm going to put it under the hood of a Beetle. So, it looks like a Beetle. You get inside, the inside looks like a Beetle, but the second you start that car, it's going to handle almost like a Ferrari. And it's kind of like that disconnect. That my brain is saying one thing, I'm expecting Mario to do X, but the game is telling him that, or the game is showing me he's doing Y. And it's one of those very weird things that, again, you don't run into with traditional games. It's going to be a very fast Beetle, too. I think it's about to rain, too, out there. I'm just staring out my window. Again, you can see, like, the day-night transitions going on over there. I'm sorry, I had to make sure I'm posing for the camera like that. But, again, like, and this is going to be a part of my book, that I don't think Kaizo design would be marketable. And I'm curious for you folks watching, would you buy a legitimate Kaizo game? If someone was selling a I want to be the guy clone, or making their own original take off of a Mario Kaizo hack, and they're selling for like $10 to $15, knowing that it is a Kaizo game, would you buy that? And like for me, I don't think I would. Because again, like I can just imagine playing it, hitting that wall, and then just stopping. And it is very much an evolution of classic and retro design. For instance, on the stream we played a few weeks ago several of the games from Loco Milito, Curse Castalia, Curse of Izios, and that's a really good example again of that form of modern retro design. His games very much feature fixed patterns, and they're designed like that, but there's still wiggle room in terms of how you can play those games. Granted, you can play them at the super hardcore, getting his quote-unquote secret ending, but they're still open enough that if you're good enough at those games, you can play them. And while you're still dealing with those fixed patterns, it doesn't feel like I must be playing at, the top 99 percentile in order to get through them. Super Meat Boy is a very interesting direction, or a very interesting point about that news, because I would agree it's very much a Kaizo-esque kind of game, in that it requires precision. But I think the reason why that still works for me on my Invictus is that it feels right in my hands. Like, playing as Meat Boy, I know exactly how that character will move, and then it's just about performing the tasks. So I wasn't really getting that disconnect in the same way I was when I was playing Invictus. But again, I think you can still see that same point, that a lot of these Kaizo-esque kind of games, it's basically saying, here's the start, here's the end, and you must perform this exact chain of events in order to get through it. And again, any deviation, any failure, anything that you can't do, you will never succeed in that game. Dusk Force, I think, kind of got that far, especially when you got to the key challenges or the lock gates, where you must perform this 100% right or you will never beat those levels. And again, it's different form of design when we talk about games that have more of that improvisational element to it. When there are random patterns within that game, or even subjective difficulty. For instance, like the 3D Mario games that I talk about in my book, they're a great example of this. The levels are set up wide enough that there isn't a 100% perfect way to play it and that you must accomplish. You can play those levels any way you want, and you may find hidden shortcuts or event breaks that can aid you. But if somebody brand new wants to play Mario Odyssey, they'll have their own path through the game, just as a hardcore speedrunner, world record holder will. And the game is accommodating enough for both. Even something like Dark Souls, despite, as people describe it, as having extreme difficulty, it's still open up two different builds. If it was that hard, it would basically be saying, if I don't use, let's say, a longsword catalyst build, I will never beat that game. And we've had plenty of fun creating really weird builds or just trying different weapons. And again, it's such a different element from the Kaizo games. A few minutes ago, I mentioned the task bots and stuff like that. And like a task bot could never play a game like Neo or Darkest Dungeon or again Dark Souls or anything like that, because there's no set pattern to it. You have to react to what's going on screen. You can't just assume that this enemy will walk on screen at this point, he will do this attack, and I do this to beat him. It doesn't work like that. And like when you guys are watching me play Neo this past week, I mean, you saw that it was about constant reaction to what's going on. And if you try to play that game or any modern action game mechanically, you're just never going to win. And I think with that, I want to move on. We'll do a quick weird games, and then we'll see if there's any other secondary topics. But yeah, and that's another big. Thank you for saying that news. That reminds me of one other point I want to bring up quickly. That's another big thing about Kaizo games. Those checkpoints are basically like holy grails for you to reach, because you are going to have to do a lot to get there. And many developers, you're going to love to hear this news. Many Kaizo developers will set up traps right at the checkpoint, that if you trick them, you will lose that checkpoint. And they will set up Kaizo traps at the end goal post as well. Like imagine that this is the platform, so you land right here, and then all of a sudden like a bullet bill will shoot out and hit you. And there is no way, again, to know that that's there unless you've already triggered it and obviously died from it. And I am pretty sure if you give that to a casual player and they somehow get to that point and it happens, they're probably going to throw a controller against the wall, or lift their tower up and throw it out the window they're playing on the computer. And yeah, like that is one of the big things about modern game design. You don't want the player to feel like they're losing or having to repeat content. But that's an essential point about Kaizo game. Basically, every level is essentially just two sections. Beginning to checkpoint, checkpoint to the end. And you have to perform everything perfectly or you're never going to do it. And I just find that... Yep, exactly, Mike. And... And yeah, Mario Maker has become that 100%. For anyone who hasn't, if you like Google or watch on YouTube, like people who play, like 0.001% Mario Maker levels, that is just like the complete opposite of good game design or modern game design. Like, that is like a perfect lesson how to not design levels. And there are some crazy ones. That is Twilight Zone or Tales from the Dark Side levels of design. But with that lovely statement, let's move on to do some weird games. And if you guys have any topics you want me to bring up, let me know. Yeah. Oh yeah, they call it trolley, hot garbage, and many other terms. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Tojim and Earl. Oh, the Texorcist is coming out this week. I did a first look video on it. Maybe we'll do a live stream or a bigger play of it when it's actually released. Let's see. Let's see. Another very disturbing AO game that came up really fast. That's not a good sign for this week's Weird Game segment. Oh, a game called Border Control. Okay, so this one, and this is the description for this game. Defend America from murderous zombie hordes, waves of unwashed orcs, and the military strength of enemy nations, all bent on the destruction of the homeland. And it, of course, looks very exciting from that description. I've been playing it, but I'm under embargo, so I can't talk about it until its release. Let's see. Virtual Diary. Zombie Killing Simulator. I'm surprised that's the first time I've seen that name. I would assume that many more people will try to make a game with that title before. Let's see. This doesn't look too bad. Dismantle, Construct, Carnage. A game where you build like these robots and you take them out to fight, and every part of them is destructible. Possibly once the embargo lifts on it. Let's see. What? Oh, someone's making a, looks like a VR Tetris game. Tetrotron VR. Where you have to set up blocks on Mars. Again, not the VR guy, but it looks interesting. Roguecraft Squadron. Tess-elated. What the hell? Here's one. The game is called 420 Button Clicker. The player can add, move, and delete buttons on the screen. In default mode, new buttons are added by clicking on the screen. In orange mode, the currently selected button can be moved. In yellow mode, the button's click will be deleted. In green mode, a button can be promoted to green status or demoted back down to regular status. That's the entire game. I don't know if this will qualify as a video game. Again, why don't we go once again bring up that topic? What is considered an indie game? Because I'm pretty sure that's not it. Yeah, nothing is standing out this week. Wreck Crash Simulator. I thought it was Wedding Crash Simulator for a second. That could actually be a very interesting game. Let's see. We already talked about that one last week. Dungeons 3 is getting another bit of DLC. Let's see. Kill Jump Monster. Kill Jump Monster. This is a simple casual game. Control mouse. Click on the characters or monsters that pop up from below to play the game. Click on the monster to get the score. Clicking on a character will lose life. When the monster falls back below, it will lose life. When life is 0, the game is over. Huh. Sounds very involving there. Let's see, Metro Exodus still coming out. Nothing else looks all that interesting, sadly. We should do a 3-hour stream on that one to figure it out. Another RPG Maker, looks like hentai related game. Yakuza Kiwami's coming to the PC on the 19th. Let's see. Yeah. This is not looking like it's going to be an exciting week of games coming out. Other than, of course, Metro Exodus. And I think that looks like it will be it. So while I'm looking at a few more pages, any design topics you guys want me to bring up or discuss here while I continue to stare into the abyss? What is this? The hell is this? Oh my god. Alright, I think I found my winner here. Like, this is a good example of, I think, one of the weaknesses we see from some independent developers. And this is definitely an everything in the kitchen sink kind of design. The game is called the Prometheus Secret Neura. And I'm sure everybody knows exactly what this game is about by that title. Alright, the Prometheus Secret Neura is a single-player 2.5D physics puzzle platformer combined with fast-paced card combat. Oh, God. And then we got... What? We got a story here that I can't really comprehend and talk at the same time. Oh boy. What? So here's some of the descriptions of elements in the game. A 7-level indicator that highlights the condition of the player's soul. Level 7 the soul being righteous and full of light, down to 0 having no light, and the soul being classed as immortal, or immoral. Then there are dark traits. The darker the soul becomes, the more chance a player will have of gaining a random dark trait, which will empower the bosses they challenge. They can lose a little health. Let's see. So it's a physics platformer. Player will have to rely on placement, gravity, and timing to maneuver through. Then there are boss battles. But the boss battles are played out through a fast-paced magic card system. But wait, there's more. There's a token management system that is used to unlock and add gear to their characters. Oh my god, like the game doesn't end. So it's puzzle platforming to get to a boss fight, and then the boss fight becomes a card battle game. This is either like the greatest game ever made, or I think it could be a complete mess of designs. Like, I have no idea What is going on in these screenshots? Nothing. I don't know what this game is here. Maybe that will be in the DLC. Alright. I need to look this up really quickly. How much is this being sold on Steam? I know, let's play the prices right. How much do you think this game is going to be? And there's no price for it on Steam right now. Oh, well, there goes that little plan. But I guess we'll find out come February 22nd. Alright. 99 cents or 29. Maybe. Alright. But I think with that, after that little segue here, what should our final topic be? I know I'll go ahead and mention the Activision layoffs. Oh, I did see another Mike. He posted about Tim Ruswick's game that just got released. And maybe we'll play that one there at some point. Let's see. Activision layoffs. I'm just reading the story really fast here. Let's see. Alright, so it looks like they're having a major layoffs this week, with potentially hundreds of employees losing their jobs all across Activision's brand as well as in Blizzard. So the rumor is that it's going to be a lot of people in essentially non-game making areas, so PR, social media, support, and it definitely doesn't sound good. Again, Blizzard has always been at their best with giving free autonomy to do whatever they want, and getting rid of them doesn't sound like. Again, it sounds like them trying to cut costs. I know a lot of people have been discussing the fact that they're leaving. Of course, like the head of the company is, bringing home like a huge bonus. I think in like the millions of dollars. Let's see. That's an interesting topic news about finding, hiring other developers to do work for your game. I just don't. I think that would be something I would like to have. I think that would be something I would like to have Rob on, or a co-host, to discuss, especially someone who's kind of in the trenches right now in terms of being an indie developer. And hopefully we'll get a few more games for the Indie Spotlight stream here. Let's see. Yeah, they'll probably want to keep that guy. Let's see. Was there discussion about on Gamma Sutra? I'm I'm also curious about what's going to happen with BioWare and how things are going with Anthem. There's something that popped up on Twitter last night. Don't know if I can find it again. Let me see here. Regarding about not properly reporting or managing money when it comes to an indie developer. Because that is a very interesting point. Let me see. I'm not seeing it. Damn. Because there was something like really big. Yeah, that's why I've heard about Anthem there. They're probably going to hold out until after reviews are over and then add them in. Damn. I just saw this piece of news last night. What was the game? Oh, wasn't it about... I think it was about Iconoclast. Let me see. And the fact that his situation in terms of how hard it was really wasn't like explained to a lot of people. I'm not finding it though. Like, somebody on my Twitter feed was mentioning an interview that the Iconoclast developer did. And we really, unfortunately, don't see developers or reviewers doing second or third reviews. Especially not like on like the YouTuber side, who are constantly rushing to whoever is like the next big game. That's not it. Oh my god. He spent 7 years making Iconoclast. Yeah. Ugh. I just got a punch in the chest there. He described Iconoclast as Metroid Fusion meets Metal Slug. No, it's not like Metal Slug at all. Oh man, that just hurt. When people do that, when they keep messing with genre definitions like that, it hurts me. Let's see. That's a video review. That's not what I was looking for. Yeah, and it's very... and that could be its own little topic there. About embellishing what it means to work in game design like that. When it comes to a lot of these independent developers, you hear this from, like, you hear again about these major successes, but you rarely hear again about the amount of work, and sometimes the amount of bad work that is going into these titles. With like the iconoclast description there. Like, and we've said this before, that there really isn't any game that should take 5+ years to be made. Oh, that's lovely. And it's very harsh. I know there's probably a few developers watching this, and I know we've spoken to a few developers on some of our casts who've spent 4+ years making one title, and oh, tell them to send me. Tell them that I really want to play next Mechania too. But when it comes to a lot of these games, like, it just never seems like, and we've said this before with Owlboy as well, that game that was on and off again for 10 years, that you rarely see that amount of work. But again, the other side is that we haven't really talked about is that the developers who do spend this time, or who do sometimes get pulled up because of it, they were basically probably doing a lot of things wrong. And part of the written interview that I saw with the Iconoclast developer is him describing that for a good 3 to 4 years, he was basically living at a friend's apartment, and he wasn't even like paying rent there. And he was basically surviving off of, friends and family to finish that game. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's kind of very misleading for developers and people to, not really describe the hardships of what it means to make a video game for a living. Again, the people watching this right now, whether it's live or recorded, I'm sure I know a few of you, have your own personal horror stories along those lines. And again, most consumers will never care, let alone even hear about that information. And it is very scary to make a video game. And I think this is, again, one of those big issues when it comes to game journalism and gaming YouTubers and stuff like that. That, again, they only discuss the hits. They only discuss the massive successes. And a game can only be an amazing title that will be a Game of the Year winner. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know, Mike. Everything here on YouTube is great. I get all that fat Gillette, Mountain Dew, and Wheaties money. Or, I'm sorry, Gatorade money as well. I'm waiting for that check for them to send me in the mail. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that news. Again, quality certainly takes time, but there is something to be said about spending too long on a single game as well. If it takes you 7 years to make one game, how many smaller projects could you have done in that time to even improve your own skills at? And you'll hear from a lot of developers who say that, I learned so much while I'm designing this game. Well, of course you did. You spent 7 years on it. I mean, if you didn't learn anything from that, I think we would all be really concerned. But, again, the dreams... Yep. The dream idea that I'm going to spend 5 to 10 years of my life on one game, and it will basically pay off all my debt, all my loans, I can retire, is a myth. You can learn medicine in around 6 years, so that's good. And there's a full experience, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, how many people go onto a Steam forum and they will complain to the developer saying, "Why are you not lowering the game's price? You're a millionaire. The game was $10. You sold no, it was $20. You sold 500,000 copies. You must be a millionaire for that." And it's like, no, that's not how game dev works. And again, it's very. This is very bad. It goes back to an article I wrote about in Medium about the problem with modern game journalism like that. That if you're just giving that impression that everything is perfect and that nothing goes wrong, you're not really preparing people for the realities of what it means to be a game developer. And yeah, like, game dev is one of the lowest paying jobs. Nice. Yeah, maybe, Mojo. I would like to check out that game at some point. Yep. And yeah, and it's very hard, I think, and I know a lot of, like, kids, they don't understand that. And again, nobody really talks about that as well, in terms of what that means to succeed in this market. And yeah, like, even, oh, it is 90% off. Alright. Maybe I'll grab that off of Steam on a list of some other games as well. But getting back to the top end, and even they're a good example of that next Mechania game. That House Marquee has been really struggling with trying to get people to play that game, and even if it wins all those rewards and has all those high reviews, doesn't mean anything if nobody's buying it. Are you going to bring Unity back into the discussion? Let's see. But for a lot of these studios, like, you see them again pushing through the pain with that passion. I think some people point out, like, Slime Rancher was another example of that. Like, there was a time where they would, I remember this was in the article that I was reading last night, that they were saying something like, if they do this now, they will not see any money for 6 months. Now, that could be a decent amount of money or a good amount of money, but again, you're going 6 months without a paycheck, or 6 months without additional money like that. Yep. Oh yeah, and again, you don't know how much money was spent making that game, because everybody is different. Somebody, and of course, people who have part-time and full-time jobs on top of doing game design. Because that's the other thing you don't hear about. A lot of people assume that a game developer is just somebody who sits, sits at their computer 8 to 10 hours a day and magic happens. And no, I'm pretty sure everybody will argue that's not how game design works. And without being able to properly explain to people what this all means, it's really creating that false reality. I mean, there are a lot of independent developers right now who are dreading 2019 in terms of whether or not they're going to have the money to keep going. That whole indie apocalypse thing. Let's see here. Need to pick that up at some point too. Yep, the math is the magic, exactly. And this has been an issue with the independent scene, or with just game development, for so long that anyone who's not covering or really talking about the game industry doesn't know or even care about this. Like, for instance, like, further proof for me that a lot of the big name gaming YouTubers are just useless is that I saw, like, nobody bring up the whole Starbreeze dissolving issue that we talked about 2 weeks ago, with how much Starbreeze has mismanaged the hell out of all their revenue. And it's probably going to lead to Payday. It's probably going to lead to Payday 3 either being canceled or maybe being sold to another studio to be worked on. Trigonometry Masters? I don't think I've heard of that one. Oh, here it is. Trigonometry. A 99-cent game. Oh yeah, wasn't that the Vision software set developer who we were also ranting about YouTubers and streamers there? That was fun. It's always great to have somebody else to rant along there with. But again, most people don't really see what's going on. And again, you're not going to see what's going on unless you either talk to somebody directly or you actually work at that company or you do it yourself. Again, News, for people who are watching this right now, News was the developer behind Chromasia Rock, Paper, Scissors Tactics, and he's currently working on Project Triad. And he's kind of he has first experience with what it means to have to do that math in terms of trying to make a game while still trying to earn a living. And again, like, there are a lot of people who, again, they see like that $5 million. They see the number $5 million and think that person is set for life. But as you said, $5 million with 3 years in development, 30 employees at $20 an hour. Yeah, it's going to be a long time before they do that. Yep. Oh yeah, Mike. Like, that's another really big point there. Like, a lot of the 3D independent games we see either burn out before they're released, or they're these very low quality asset flip games. All those very adult minded games that I mentioned but can't reveal when we do our weird games segment, it's basically like that. It looks like, 1997 3D computer graphics. Or, I'm sorry, maybe 2001, 2002. And, yeah, like, 3D is a very big trap for first-time developers, because it takes a lot of money to do 3D right. Again, any developer watching this is probably nodding their head at that statement. You cannot make a good-looking 3D game with the same amount of time and money as a good-looking 2D game. And we've said this before, many of the 2D games we've played for like retro games and our classic game nights, they still hold up well. Because it still has that look to it. It's kind of like, to me, oh boy, if calling YouTubers useless is going to get me in trouble, you're going to love this one. It's one of the things why I don't like the state of modern cartoon animation. The CGI look, it has a very cheap look to it. That everything starts to look very similar, very same. Like, it's one of the reasons why I still love like Looney Tunes and a lot of like the older Disney stuff. Like, that hand-drawn appeal to it. Still, it looks like somebody took time and care to make it look like that. And again, if you watch like any of the old Looney Tunes cartoons, like, they still hold up relatively well in terms of their animation quality. For the most part, I would say. I don't quote me on this one, Mojo. I'm sure News can probably attest to this more than I can. I think the developers are given usually if it's a major Steam sale, the developers are usually contacted in advance by Valve to let them know that there's going to be a sale and ask them how much they want to have off for it. Now, the developer wants to do a sale, then they're free to, I think, do whatever the heck they want. Right now, what I was looking at, there is the black and white indie game bundle, which is a bunch of indie games that are, well, obviously black and white on sale. And that, I think, is done entirely by those developers, and Steam doesn't really, like, control that. Like, if you want to set up a bundle for your games, you can do that at your leisure. Let's see. But yeah, like, getting back to the 3D comment, like Gaslamp Games being a really good example of that trap. Yeah, here it is. Like, their first game, Dungeons of Dreadmore, or Yeah, wait, they did a second game? Oh, they did kind of like a mock, kind of like a visual novel or something like that. But Dungeons of Dreadmore was very successful. It was a top-down isometric roguelike that we played on stream. Very, over the top in terms of its dialogue, and it earned them a lot of goodwill, and it probably, paid for itself and then some. And then they spent a good 4 to 5 years making Clockwork Empires. And this was them going with a 3D Dwarf Fortress steampunk game. And it killed the company. I mean, it literally killed that company. They released it because they ran out of money, and it's now been downvoted to hell. And it's such a shame about that game dying. But I mean, they definitely bit off more than what they could chew. And yeah, those forums have not been updated in over a year. So even the fan-made patch for Clockwork Empires is dead. And that was really good. I played a stream of that like about last year. The fans and supporters got together and they basically created their own patch to try and fix and add on the Clockwork Empires. And it was looking good. But again, it was them working for free. And you can't really hold people to a project when they're free. Void Bastards is still not out yet. Uh-oh. Voice is starting to die. Oh, that must mean it's a good cast when my voice is dying, right? Let's see. Still saying 2019 for Void Bastards. I think, didn't we say that they weren't going to do they weren't doing an early access? Oh man, voice is really dying there. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything new about it, so I'm sure they're going to wait. But yeah, like, it's becoming a lot harder. Yep. I mean, that's like the very bad thing about games is like the whole idea of the lack of postmortems on your various titles. Oh man, my voice is going there. But it's again getting back to the lack of transparency when it comes to games, and the fact we don't really see too many postmortems. This is why that the games failure workshop that we see at GDC is such an important point about being an indie developer. Like, and the sad part, exactly, I need a bigger bottle. Like, remember when we did that talk about where the water tastes like wine? Which is actually a really good point. Maybe I should get some wine in this bottle instead. That when we read that post-mortem, like, there are some people who looked at those comments that people are saying, no, that's not nice. You don't want to say that about him. You're kicking a man when he's down. But when we were reading about some of those decisions, it was basically like, how could this game be a success given what was described here? And again, it's another one of those harsh realities that even if you think you're doing the right thing, you can still be doing the wrong thing when it comes to your games. And it's very sad about that, but it's one of the reasons why we need more post-mortems on games. Because again, you're not going to know what you did wrong or not going to know why a game didn't work unless you hear about it. Again, 50 different YouTubers can talk about Apex Legends, complaining that because there's more people of color in that game, that's going to fail. Or that because characters are the LGBT variety, that the game's, pandering is going to fail like that. Because that popped up in a few of my feeds too, which is always great. But the real success or failure behind a game you really have to look at what the developer is saying above all else. And again, sometimes the developer will know why a game didn't work. They'll say, right up front, I spent all this time with this mechanic and it didn't work. Or maybe, or this was very poorly implemented. And sometimes they won't know why a game worked. And that's another really big point. A lot of people assume, in most cases, that video games are these perfectly developed projects, which I know right now probably both News and Mike are rolling their eyes, probably in a concert there as I'm saying that. And for a lot of these games, I don't know about that, Mike. I do think there are some standardized practices that you do need to keep an eye on, whether it is from a marketing point of view or even just from a UI and playability point of view. Like, one of the big things that we're seeing a lot more talk about is accessibility features. And I think that is one that should be standard. Colorblind mode, subtitles, and there's an entire list of that, I think, on the GDC and other sites about, standard features that will make games playable for everyone. But back to the original point there, that a lot of people will see a video game as being this perfectly designed thing that, the developer did exactly everything right. But again, some of the best or some of the more interesting titles have come out of either failure or really just experimentation. And we used Silent Hill as an example. Many people who played Silent Hill, I'm sure many reviewers, commented on the fact that the fog effect was so great, it really made the world come alive and, brought this level of mysteriousness. And then it was revealed that the fog was literally just them trying to cut back on the rendering on the engine because it couldn't handle having everything on screen without slowdown. And again, you sometimes run into that. Again, necessity is the motherhood of invention. We talked about this last week with the importance of limitations and the whole problem of a blank slate. Again, if you can literally make whatever you want, how do you come up with a game plan to make everything? And not including the game everything, or everything the game that we did. I think I did a video on that one 2 years ago. But you do have to do playtesting. You need to have people to look at your game to figure out why something is working or why it doesn't. And I think this is another big point that a lot of people miss out on. That, again, just because a game is massively successful, that doesn't mean that developer has literally lived in a cave for 3 to 5 years, never went on the internet, never spoke to anybody. They clicked, they hit that one key on their keyboard to send it to Steam, and now they're a multimillionaire. No. They did lots of playtesting. You have to do research to figure out what makes people like your game. That the developer we just spoke to, that the Bombfest one, he said that he literally changed his game, quarter halfway through it, because more people were liking the bomb mechanic rather than the cooperative puzzle mechanic. And again, sometimes that happens. Again, you don't know what your game is going to do unless people are actually able to see it and play it. And like we said further up, again, playtesting. It doesn't matter if you think your game is great if everybody hates it. Yeah? And again, the echo chamber effect is a big part of that. And again, a lot of people don't want to hear that. And this is another thing we see from a lot of gaming YouTubers, that they'll say stuff like when a developer gets criticism or they change a game saying, SJWs force developer to make changes, or developer forced to get woke in order to make their game marketable. No, that's not how it works. If you have a lot of people saying that they don't like X in your game they would buy if you don't have it, then you need to think about, well, do I want 10 to 15,000 more people interested in my video game? Yep. And again, there's that fine line between, when a game is your idea and when you're building it for a community or for a market. Because again, a lot of people will assume that these games are handled as a singular vision, that the developer is, God, king, and country, and how dare you, question their resolve and their choices. And, I am doing this perfectly, and, nothing will go wrong with it. But the best games are designed with an open mind. Now, like we said when we talked with John Brieger about this when it comes to playtesting, there are people who will think they'll go too far in that other direction, saying, should I just throw that on a few of my thumbnails, Mike? There are people who will say that, any change somebody suggests, they will implement. Can I have a random loot generation? Sure, we'll put that in. Well, can we have online multiplayer? Sure, let's do that. Yep, and that was one of the things where the war tastes like wine ran into. Again, it was a critical darling. Many sites like Polygon, Kotaku, many indie game developers were pushing for that game, saying it's the best damn thing ever. Then we all played, and it was like, what the hell am I looking at here? Yep. And you have to be able to read between the lines when it comes to suggestions like that. Again, like John said this really well. I'm going to try and paraphrase it, that you have to be as receptive to to just good praise or just praise as you are to negative feedback. And you have to be able to read between the lines as to what people are saying. Because nobody's going to tell you exactly how to make your game. No commenter is going to put on a Steam forum, if you do this, 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 and this, your game will, and by doing that, your game will sell 5 million copies. They'll like to say that. Of course, how many people on Steam will say, just add multiplayer, you'll sell 200,000 copies? Or, I'll buy this game, but add full multiplayer, online servers to it. Oh yeah. And like we said last time, there are plenty of developers out there who do not like to listen to criticism. Unless it's of the good kind. Oh, it's so horrible that your game didn't turn out well. And we even saw, again, there's plenty of people who will attack people, even if they think that they were having criticism. That whole Guild Wars 2 fiasco from last year is a good example of that. And again, you have to be able to be open to all this stuff. Because again, you cannot design a game in just your own personal echo chamber. And again, that's... don't make me respond to that one. Like, I won't get any more trouble than I probably already am. Yep. And yet you have, but you taking that further, you still appendix issues with your game. Yep. But there is still some elements that you have to be malleable on when it comes to making your title. Because if you don't do that, if you just refuse, that can lead to a worse selling game, even if it's the game you want to make. Brigador is a great example of that. When I spoke with Hugh about the game, he was completely opposed to the more, I don't know how we describe that control scheme. I know, kind of like he was more opposed to the dual stick control scheme in Brigador. He wanted that tank-like controls that was more reminiscent of games like Jungle Strike, Sudden Strike, stuff like that. And it hurt the game because a lot of people didn't want to deal with that. And then when you released the Up Armored edition that allowed for that set of controls alongside the tank-like, it got a lot more people to play it. Yep. There you go. But the point again being that, and even if so many people play that game, that's another big thing, and I think we'll begin to wrap things up because my voice is starting to die, that even if a game does get a second or a third life or anything like that, that still doesn't mean that it's doing all right. Just because a lot of people heard of Skyshine's Bedlam after the Redux version or Brigador Up Armored, that game still had a lot of trouble. I hope not. I don't like tank-like controls. I'm glad that when we play the Resident Evil 1 remake or remaster that wasn't in there. And again, that's another really good point about developers who are so locked. There you go. Was it Lupus? I learned that from House. But that's another point where developers are not about Lupus, but about developers who are so locked to an idea or a design that they will try to, again, fit a square peg into a round hole to make it work, even if it could have been easier just to do something else. And this gets back to the major topic, again, about, again, kind of the misleading of what it means to do game design. That developers will try and boost themselves, and you'll see again this in a lot of interviews, saying that, you know, they did whatever they did, everything they did was right, and if you just do that and nothing else, you will be a massive success when it comes to the game industry. And again, it doesn't work like that. Or the games that it does work like that, you never know if it could have gone better if they would have done something a little bit differently. And that's the very scary thing about game design. Again, when you release a game, whether you spend 6 months, 6 years, 30 minutes on it, you don't know how people are going to respond to it. Everybody wants the next Flappy Bird, Five Nights at Freddy's, Fortnite. Again, insert game here kind of discussion. But you don't know the amount of work that went into that game, and B, there's no way of knowing at the time if it's going to be a success. Again, publishers want sequels because they think that's the easiest or that's the safest gamble. And it is, in some sense. If I know that Assassin's Creed did, let's say, I don't know sales on the top of my head. Let's say Assassin's Creed Odyssey sold 3 million copies. Well, on their next Assassin's Creed game, they can kind of budget around thinking that maybe around that amount, give or take, we'll buy the next game. The same thing with Call of Duty. But the problem, though, is that you can't always reliably know that. And it's always that very big risk when it comes to game design. I mean, how many games have we played on stream that are unique original titles that still cost a studio and even probably put a lot of people out of a job? And they could still be really great games. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't matter. And it's why we were talking about earlier about the importance of marketing, play testing, getting the word out there. But at the end of the day, it is a very scary place to be in the game industry. And as independent developers are saying, this year is probably going to be even scarier. Or use just like 2 sets of buttons. WSAD, or no, you could do like left, right, WS, like that, I suppose. Now we're getting off topic, talking about tank controls instead of scaring people. But more discussions need to be had about the harsh reality of when it comes to making a video game. Because, again, a lot of people don't see that. And it is definitely, at least on my Twitter, with all the independent developers I'm following, very much a sign of doom and gloom for a lot of people. And again, you'll never know unless the developer will flat out tell you just how much money they really earned. Because for some developers, selling 25,000 copies was, more than anything they could ever imagine. And then for some developers, selling 2 million copies, or like what we see with EA, 2 to 3 million copies sold is considered a failure. And I know with that sentence, every independent developer watching this right now is probably clutching their chest and their heart and thinking about their game sold 2 to 3 million copies. And it's very... I think the answer to that is going to come in the next 10 months. But again, like for a lot of these games, you just will never know how much work or how much they really need to keep going. Hey Draken, I am afraid you came right at the end of this, where are we at again? Almost hour and 40-minute talk. I think the industry in some sense is too big to fail, but I do think a lot of people are going to be hurt in terms of staying around. And again, it's a very pessimistic kind of view that if the developer was good enough, the game would have sold. But again, as we've said, that's not always the case. And here is my final question, and I'm going to end the stream on this for people watching this live or recorded. Do you think the store should handle the responsibility of marketing a game for you? And that leads to a lot of discussions. And for new people watching this right now, again, we'll probably be talking about this in the Discord channel, link down below. It is open to everybody. But I'm going to wrap things up here for now, and I think I may make a separate video on that. And I'll be back later tonight for I think we'll do some puzzle platforming. I really do want to play the Swapper again and get some footage of that. But for anyone new, be sure to check out the Discord channel. Again, for Patreon support, you only have until the end of February for the $25 or more pledge if you like to get acknowledged in my game design book and maybe fulfill some deep-seated dream goal that you never knew you had. But I'll be back next week around 3:30 EDT for our next show. Hopefully Rob will be doing better then. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where he's in the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great night.